It's inconceivable that 2/3 of Congress, which is the amount required, would propose term limits on themselves without enormous pressure. Hi, I'm Philip Blumel. I'm the host of No Uncertain Terms, the official podcast of the term limits movement. In this short video, we're going to review the top term limit stories from 2025 from the episodes of No Uncertain Terms. And at the end, I'll make a bold prediction or two about what's going to happen in 2026. As you probably know, U.S. term limits is leading a movement to impose term limits on the U.S. Congress via two related strategies. The first is via a constitutional amendment being considered by the U.S. Congress. The amendment bills were introduced in both the House and the Senate in January in 2025. But that wasn't the big news. We introduce these bills every year. The news is that 126 Congress members between the House and Senate co-sponsored these bills in 2025. Plus, a record number of pledges were collected from 2026 candidates committing to co-sponsor and vote for these bills if they're elected. Of course, it's inconceivable that 2/3 of Congress, which is the amount required, would propose term limits on themselves without enormous pressure. So that brings us to our second strategy, the Term Limits Convention. Under Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution, not only Congress is allowed to propose amendments, the states are also. If 2/3 of the states, that's 34, call for an amendment proposing convention limited to the subject of congressional term limits, such a convention must be called. However, we expect the threat of such a convention to push Congress's hand. That's why the next three stories make the top list for 2025. In March, the South Dakota legislature approved the Term Limits Convention application. Also in March, later in the month, Indiana approved the Term Limits Convention application. In May, South Carolina approved the Term Limits Convention bill. Let me go on record now to predict that 2026 will be the best year yet for the Term Limits Convention project. I predict that we will match last year's tally of 3 states minimum, and that amongst these states are going to be Kansas, Utah, and Georgia. The question I have is how many states have to sign on to the Term Limits Convention to force Congress to act? Let's find out together. To follow the progress of this movement, subscribe to No Uncertain Terms podcast at termlimits.com/podcast or wherever it is you get your podcasts. Thank you.